Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Uttam dhammam sangham namasami. So today I would like to talk about Vedana, or feeling. This is a really important aspect of the Buddhist teaching. The feeling tone appears in many teachings, and it's an aspect of, it's one of the satipatthanas. It's a second establishment of mindfulness. There's a whole samyutta, or collection of teachings in the connected discourses on Vedana, and then it's also a pivotal aspect in dependent origination. It appears in many different places, and it's part of our human existence. And it's something that can be experienced in day-to-day life, and it also can be contemplated on the cushion. So it's a really good topic, a very good aspect of our existence to focus on. So I collected some extracts from suttas and some thoughts in notes here, and I'll try to give something cohesive to you all that can be useful. But yeah, so Vedana is translated as feeling tone, felt experience, sensation, hedonic tone. This is Bhante Analayo as this hedonic tone. And so, and then there's three types of feeling: pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral feeling. So it's a felt sense of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral after, it's like the contact at any of the sense gates. Feeling arises just naturally. This is a natural phenomena. It's a part of our survival mechanism as any kind of species, that any animal species, anything in the animal kingdom has this experience of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. And it's what drives us in the world. If we're not aware of its effect on us, and then we can be driven by it. And so just a natural survival mechanism, of course, is seeking out what's pleasant, and then avoiding what's unpleasant. But then there's strong reactions, or just the obsession with that avoidance and seeking. And so, if, what do you call it, creature comfort and things like that, people talk about those kind of things. It's just like, you can just be on that level as a human being. You can just, try to live your life as comfortably and pain-free as possible. But is that really fulfilling? Is that, and this is I wanted to bring in the Buddha's, the reason why he went forth into monastic life in the kind of lens of looking at Vedana, because it fits in there. So like I was saying, the experience is conjoined with the contact with any of the sense bases: the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. There's 6. So any kind of contact we have, there's a feeling that arises. And then, so just being able to tease that out before we respond to it. And then there's also perception also plays a part in feeling. Can everyone hear me okay? Do I have the mic in the right spot? Okay. So our perceptions condition feeling, and feelings condition perception. It goes back and forth and reinforcing one another. And then our perceptions trick us. We get, or we just get obsessed with seeking pleasure. But so we have to be aware of this perception of things as well as the actual feeling tone that arises. Trying to think of an example off the bat, but just, I mean, my perception of this is just a beautiful arrangement, right? So, but I don't even know why anymore. Why do we think flowers are beautiful? It's because of our conditioning. I think maybe our mothers were taking us around and said, "Oh, pretty flower," and this is something to delight in. And then color attracts. I was I was on retreat and in California in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and everything was just brown, and rocks were gray and everything. And then I saw there were a few wildflowers that were persisting. So some can persist in the really dry climate. And then I'd see them and my attention would get attracted to it. So it may be something very primitive in our, biology that we're attracted to certain things. So, but then there's this reinforcement of flowers are beautiful in our culture. And it seems that many cultures, maybe spring has come and the climate is beautiful and, so there's this cultural conditioning as well with Vedana and what we think is pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral, depending on our cultural conditioning too. So this is throughout history, that cultural conditioning comes in, and there's a tendency to just seek maybe more than we need as far as the pleasant conditions for ourselves. And this is what causes a lot of the trouble in the world. And I wanted to get to the history of the Buddha before his awakening. He was a very thoughtful person. There's some stories about it seemed like he was kind of naive, and it wasn't until he was 29 that he suddenly had this angst about sickness, aging, and death. And so I don't want to be burned as a heretic by saying I don't quite go along with that story. I think that he was very thoughtful all along from a very young age. And just from the suttas, we can see his sensitivity. And he was in a warrior class. The ruling class was a warrior class. So in order for you to gain power, you had to exert force. So so he lived in a very privileged life. And so he was able to enjoy all kinds of sense pleasures of that time, and like the finest silks and the finest food. And it said that even in the suttas, it does say that his family had 3 places to live, like according to the climate, and people do that these days too. Like if you have enough wealth, you can do that. But this was at the expense of others. The ruling class exploited and took over territories by force, and labor was, I'm sure if you weren't doing your share, that would be a big problem. So things were enforced by weapons and so on, and threat of if you didn't behave in a certain way. So So the Buddha, here's this, I have this handwritten because I pulled this out at the last minute, but this Attadanda Sutta, the Buddha talks about before he went forth into monastic life, he's speaking to the monks, but he's describing what he was experiencing before he went forth. And Attadanda means taking up arms. So he starts out, perils stem from taking up arms. Just look at how people conflict. I shall extol how I came to be stirred with a sense of urgency. I saw the population flounder like fish in a puddle, seeing them at odds with one another. Fear came upon me. The world around me was volatile. All directions were in turmoil. Wanting a home for myself, I saw nowhere unsettled. Yet, even in their settlement, they were at odds. Seeing that, I grew uneasy. Then I saw the dart there, so hard to see, stuck in the heart. So this is just the first part, the introduction, and he gives the monks a training after this to how to remove that dart, and that dart being the craving, which causes dukkha. So that the craving itself actually is dukkha, if you get in touch with that feeling. And so this is what drives people, this craving for sense pleasures, the pleasant sensation at any of the sense doors. And so this is this is familiar for us too in this age. And when we look around and see the peril in the world and just the greed overtaking people's minds, the leaders and world, many countries, there's this terrible turmoil going on. And I mean, sensibly you'd say, oh, this is not necessary. We could probably figure out how to share resources so we didn't, but it's because of greed, because of this desire. And it can be at the mind too. The mind door is, I think, the strongest sense gate where that craving lies. It talks about the chitta as a heart mind. So that burning in our hearts, the wanting more and more and more, it's just driving humanity throughout the ages to do horrible things to one another. So he was seeing this. He was a very sensitive person, and this is one of the reasons he said that he went forth into monastic. Well, he went into his noble search. So he went forth into homelessness. This was one of the big reasons. Also, it does appear in the suttas about sickness, aging, and death. That why this is a Arya Pariyesana Sutta, which is in the Majjhima Nikaya, and he talks about why he wondered himself, why do I seek things that that are subject to aging, sickness, and death? That I'm also sickness to aging and death. And then in the time of the Buddha, they had, in order to have wealth, you had to have livestock, and you had servants, bond servants, and also wives and children and things like that. And he said, basically, he was seeing the impermanence. So, so this sense of urgency, the samvega, as it's called, it's a wholesome sense where you get stirred up by, oh my goodness, what is there going to be ever an end to this? Just people driven by greed. And so all we can do is take care of our own hearts. I mean, we can influence others and help others and do good in the world, but there's something we've been saying frequently. We can't fix samsara, but we can't do this inward quest, this inward searching for the truth and also freedom from, or the way to pull that dart out from ourselves, that craving, so it's not taken over and completely controlling us. So the Buddha then went to the other extreme. In the time of the Buddha, when he left home, the ascetics were doing this community of ascetics were doing the self-torment. So this is the dukkha vedana, the unpleasant feeling, and there's a belief that that unpleasant feeling would burn off bad karma or kama. So he went to the full extent from a very luxurious life to the full extent that the pleasures of the world could give as a wealthy person, to the other extreme of tormenting himself, depriving him, self-deprivation. He almost starves himself to death until he realized that this isn't the way either. And this is a human tendency. We tend to go to extremes. So we have to caution and say, oh, I shouldn't be greedy, and I shouldn't try to be avoiding unpleasant. And so we cause harm to ourselves. And then, and also others too, because people around us are like, oh, please take better care of yourself. Or we end up being a medical condition instead of a human being, because we have so many problems because we've tormented ourselves. So going to either extreme is not recommended by the Buddha. There's a Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. He starts talking about the middle way and avoiding either extremes of trying to find as much pleasure as we can, or self-torment, which is that's pleasant, unpleasant vedana at the extremes. So so we have to be sensible. We have to, moderation is another way of thinking about middle way. The middle way classically is the Noble Eightfold Path. And so Niyyanika just gave you 5 precepts, and that's 3 of the path factors to avoid harm. And but also the middle way is not going to those extremes. And this also, if we're not breaking our precepts, then we're not harming, then we'll tend towards moderation, because we won't be seeking out more than we need. I think if we take the precepts really to heart, to the extent that they can, to really make a change in our lives, if we really embrace them deeply. So so avoiding extremes, we can examine what's arising in our hearts, and examine how if greed arises in response to like a sight or a smell or touches, we bringing awareness to that, because these are underlying tendencies to greed and aversion. So in practical terms, in our daily life, we can just bring awareness to the feeling tone itself, and then what's arising, and how our perceptions are also affecting that. So that if we just hesitate just a tiny bit before we reach for the extra serving of cake or whatever it is, we can, and then just say, for me, like if I'm in the the food's been offered, all the items have been offered, and there's all these wonderful food, right? And so I have my alms bowl, and I can see how the amount, I kind of have an idea of the amount that's actually right for me. And then you get to the end where there's the desserts, and then I'm like, but you feel that pull, right? You feel the pull of, I want that. And that's at the mind door, actually, because there's a sight of whatever it is that looks very delicious. And then there's the memory of, oh, yes, this is something really yummy. So, so the mind door is delighting in that. And then I can think, oh, do I really need that? So we just slow the whole process down. And it's not like I'm bad for wanting. I'm not bad for having this feeling, or often feelings of aversion arising. And that in itself is very unpleasant feeling. And so all the work you do with the mindfulness of the body, bringing awareness to the body, for me, if I'm feeling angry, you can just feel that tension, and, maybe where you hold the anger, or the gut, or the shoulders, or something like that. This is unpleasant Vedana. And so you might think that if I say, if I think I'm going to say something or do something rash, and that's going to relieve that. No, it's just going to make matters worse. So bringing our awareness to what's arising for us, bringing our awareness, and then just try to put a little bit of brakes on it. Okay, is this going to be skillful or unskillful? If I speak or act on it, is this going to really help me or the other person or whatever the situation? So awareness is the key to working with the Vedana, and then just that little bit of a pause if we can. And then if we do something, I mean, we're human beings, and it takes time. It's a gradual path. We're not going to be able to just say, okay, I'm going to stop being greedy, or I'm not going to act on my impulses, or I have these bad habits that I'm aware of. A lot of it's our habit patterning. So we have to bring awareness to our habit patterns. And then, especially if we're interacting with other people, if we make a blunder, if it's a safe situation to say, excuse me, I'm sorry that I said that, or I didn't, I just, yeah, the impulse was to, don't have to go into those details, but for yourself, you go, oh, okay, I had this strong feeling, and then I reacted. And so just bringing awareness to that, and you get to a point where you start seeing it before you speak or act. If you've been doing this practice for a while, you'll say, oh, that this is arising, and I'm about to say something, and then, oh, that usually gets a bad response when I when I say that, or whatever. So we're working with bringing awareness closer and closer and closer to Vedana, or the feeling tone that's triggering, and the perceptions, and seeing those perceptions. And this is all flavored by our views too. Our views are, this is probably the really deep Vedana is that's attached to our views. If we have a very strong view about something, and then that's right. That's the way. That's the only way. And because of our cultural conditioning, it's so strong. And then, so bringing awareness to even that, because this is what brings a lot of the conflict in the world, is our really strong views and opinions. So it's not like we shouldn't have any views. That's a mistaken idea. I mean, but giving yourself a little bit of leeway to consider, oh, well, maybe what the other person is saying or how they're behaving, there's some basis to it. Or they're behaving in a particular way because of their cultural conditioning. And for them, it's absolutely right. Somebody was using an example like, well, how we drive. So which side of the road do we drive on is according to the country you're in, right? And all the driving rules. So if you just think driving on the right side of the road is the best, and it doesn't care whatever, wherever you are, then you might get into an accident. So you have to take, like certain things are important, to take into consideration. You don't want to be, I think there's some company, it's called Headless Mumby or something like that. So we don't want to, just, we want to develop wisdom rather than just kind of numbing ourselves out and saying, no, I'm not supposed to be having any feelings or having any views or something like that. So we're developing awareness, and awareness helps develop the wisdom, the understanding. So so this is it's more complex, just weight in itself, the feeling tone, but it does that. It is the point where if we can see it, if we can see what's it's like a conditioned, response or conditionality. We see the conditionality, and before we respond, then we can see what's driving it. We can see the impulse, the kind of the fuel that drives the it's either wholesome or unwholesome. But the weight in the feeling itself doesn't have any karmic. It isn't related to karma. It's just karmically neutral. So then we can just stay at the feeling tone, and then or just observing before we do any kind of action. The mental action, though, if we can work with like I was saying, greed arising or anger arising, the more we bring awareness to those, then they're start to lose their force, because they do have a force. Those have a force that has volition. Greed and hatred have volition. So if let's say I don't act on my anger, but I'm walking around an angry person all the time, I'm not going to be pleasant for myself or anyone else to be around. So even though it's so it does have some karma to it, to allow those feelings to fester, that emotional. It's volition. It's a sankhara rather than the weight in us. So we start separating these out and seeing them clearly. And then it's possible to start diffusing them, especially if you say, oh, there's maybe a vibration or a noise in the background and then I'm feeling irritated, and then someone says something to me, and then I feel very angry. I feel the anger come up, and it's something pretty trivial that they said, for instance, or it doesn't matter. Maybe they say, something very insulting to me or something, but because I had some subtle aversion to that sound, and then whatever they said, it just amplifies that unpleasant Vedana, it compounded it. And then, so then if you're aware, okay, I'm feeling tense already, and then this person has said this to me, and it's very difficult for me to uh, just be neutral about it. It's very offensive or something. They maybe do not even know that they're being offensive because of just how we're raised. Different people are, they have what sense they're sensitive to. So then, even if I don't say something to them, if I feel really angry, they're gonna know it. So that's the thing. So there is the karma in those strong emotions, and then the more we're aware of them, and the more more skills we develop. Like at that time, if I was feeling extremely angry, maybe taking a few breaths, or I'm just thinking, wow, I'm feeling really angry. And depending on the person, you might be able to say, I need a moment or something. Or anybody, you can just say, I need to go now for whatever reason, go to the bathroom or something and cool down. But you start to, the more awareness you have with this process, the more capacity you have to not allow it to escalate. But with the conditioning that we have, there's sometimes it's like we're not aware of that conditioning, and then there can just be this spark, and then it's like a bonfire goes off, or an explosion or something. It's because a lifetime or lifetimes of karma that. So we have to be, at the very least, be careful not to react when things like that occur. But we also need to be compassionate for ourselves, and be with people that you can speak to about it. Like, oh, I had this experience where it just blew up inside. But this it'll lose its power over time, the more awareness we have to this whole process. So was there supposed to be time for questions? Is that?
We can make time for questions.
Because I can have a little bit of time. There's a sutta here. If I didn't get my pages mixed up. Okay, this is it. This is the bottom of the page. So I can end with this sutta, and if people would like to ask questions. But this is it's the title of the sutta is called Nibbana, but it's about Nibbana being directly visible in this life. And there's a Brahmin who approaches the Buddha and asks him this question: is it possible because he's hearing about Nibbana, is it possible to experience this in this life? And this is the Buddha's response to the question. Excuse me. Okay. Brahman, one excited by lust, overcome by lust, with a mind obsessed by it, intends for his own affliction, for the affliction of others, or for the affliction of both, and he experiences mental suffering and dejection. One full of hate, overcome by hatred, also intends for their own affliction or the affliction of others or both, and experience mental suffering and dejection. Excuse me. And one who is also one who's overcome by delusion. Overcome by delusion with a mind obsessed by it, intends on their own affliction or the afflictions of others or of both, and experience mental suffering and dejection. But when lust, hatred, and delusion are abandoned, one does not intend for one's own affliction, for the affliction of others, or for the affliction of both, and one does not experience mental suffering and dejection. It is in this way that Nibbana is directly visible. So this is about purification of the heart. And it's interesting too when he speaks about being overcome by, this is we're taken over by these greed, hate, and delusion. And this greed, hate, and delusion comes from Vedana, that if we allow it to control our lives. So this is the possibility for us, if we can, as much as we can, the more we can, moments we have free from greed, hate, and delusion. This is Nibbana in this very life. So I offer this for your reflection.
Okay, so we have about 15 minutes for questions, 13 minutes for questions. And I'm happy to bring over the microphone so everybody can hear and so the Zoom folks can hear. Do we have questions? Yes?
Greetings, Venerable. So nice to see you again.
It's good to see you too.
It's easy for me to grasp greed and hatred because they're so active. But delusion, which is what I think I'm probably lost the most in, because it's so hard to see being in it. I mean, it's a big topic, but I'm just wondering if you would say a little more about delusion in the cycle of greed, hatred, and delusion, how to explain it other than just, non-greed and non-hatred.
Yes.
Thank you.
So greed is associated with a pleasant feeling, and hatred with a unpleasant or painful feeling. And neutral is associated with ignorance. So it's unawareness. So yeah, for oneself, it's hard to see our own delusion where we're deluded. So having a Kalyana Mita, if you speak with them and say, maybe you could help me with this, point out if you notice something that's, because we can notice it in each other's, but not in ourselves sometimes. So that's one way. But delusion, there's things that we want to be deluded about or not ignore, or there's the word ignorance is kind of ignoring the fact, so there's the vipalasas, so There's 4 of them, and wanting to think that things are permanent when they're impermanent, wanting to things to be a source of happiness when they're actually a source of suffering, and the sense of self, continuously trying to build up the sense of self. And then the last one is about that's a subha. It's things that are beautiful that are actually not. It's a so bringing attention to those things, like because you know we all know things on the physical plane are impermanent, but we still want it. We're in denial often. We're in denial about our this body being impermanent. We don't want to think about it. So coming at ease to those kind of things, and the sources of joy. It's just only temporary, and often things result in suffering because of and this is part of what I was talking about today, is that just always seeking, and thinking that that's what's going to make us happy. If I only had that, whatever it is, the new car or something, I don't know, then I'll be happy, or just like always, trying to gratify the senses, and just seeing the dukkha in that. So, so we'll look at our own tendencies for seeking happiness in the wrong places, and just realizing that. And then the non-self, this is like the most challenging. And it's like it's real, I mean, the body, they start with the body as non-self. And this is maybe the easiest one for us to understand, that this physical form is impermanent. It's always changing. I'm not the same person I was when I was 5 years old or 18, or, it's like, and there's some idea, I don't know where it came from, that every 7 years, all the cells in the body are replaced. But yeah, so there's where it's always in flux, this sense of self. Mentally, we can actually see that if we bring our awareness to that. It's always changing. Our views are changing. Our tastes are changing. So many things are. And so what is this thing that we call a self? That's like immutable as a self. So, I mean, you're bringing awareness to the vipalasas to help break up, just bringing up or being aware of when I'm clinging to this body as wishing for its permanence, or wishing for just bringing awareness to that whole how we're always constructing a self. So I don't know if this is actually answering the question but it is related to greed, hate, and delusion. The 3 reinforce one another, because at that clinging to wanting things to be permanent, wanting a self, wanting to get pleasure out of material things. So just bringing our attention to that helps with ignorance, to see the delusion.
Okay, maybe one more question.
Sure.
If you're staying for the afternoon, we'll have more time for Dhamma teachings and discussion as well. Do we have another question? Jane. Yeah, looks like the meal crew is headed down. Yay.
I suppose it's not really a question because you've answered so many, but it's Portland's dealing with Trump sending troops here because we're a hellhole. And I really appreciate everything that you said, and I feel like running to the bathroom. Like this, like, oh, I
Oh, yeah.
just keep feeling like I need to run to the bathroom because I don't know how to react.
Oh,
But I think that it does feel like it's happening to me, and I think that the really useful piece is non-self. It's not really happening to me, although it feels like it. So.
yeah, I could speak to that a little bit. Yeah, yeah, the Buddha isn't telling us just kind of like blot out, you know, or just saying this isn't happening. Like obviously his concern, part of his concern before he went forth on his noble search was that he looked around and saw all the conflict in the world. And it's interesting that the news we before we came, because we had got the heads up that there was potentially the troops will, you know, U.S. troops or National Guard or something coming in, and I, you know, there could be rioting. I don't know if it gets escalated, but the local government was just saying, just keep cool, you know. And so this is all we can do. We just have to do our best in whatever arises to be a calm and a steady presence and to do what we can to help one another. Because they're, you know, this is samsara. This is the world we're in, and so we don't have to respond in the same way. You know, there's a teaching that in the Dhamma hatred never ends by hatred, but by love alone is it healed. So just adding more hate to hate is not going to solve the problem. And yeah, we just do our best, you know, be compassionate for yourself. That because I could feel rage too about what's going on in the world, and it's not going to change it. So sometimes I find myself feeling anger coming up, and I go, well, being angry and ranting or raving internally about it, or ranting and raving with my friends about it, is that going to change the situation? You know, if you can work with legislature or something like that, if you know, you know, that kind of patience and persistence and a lot of times that doesn't bear the fruit that we hope for even, but we do the best we can in this situation, just to bring more kindness to the world and kindness to ourselves. And it's like, this is painful. This is really painful. A lot of times when I'm feeling angry, I think about, I remember my mother had our cat on, and she was trying to do something to treat an abscess, and it was painful to the cat, and the cat bit her. He was just responding to the pain. So, and this is a reactivity, you know, that we're feeling pain in our hearts really about what's going on. And then, so then the reactivity is anger. So it's a natural reaction. So just being patient and say, oh, you know, this anger is painful. And then reacting and lashing out is not going to change. It's not going to change things. So yeah, I sympathize because it's a rough world we're in. This is humanity. It's part of humanity. Part of humanity is exploitation of other people and war and all this domination and all this kind of stuff. But also part of humanity is our kindness, our you know, what we have the capacity to develop in ourselves, the wisdom and compassion and caring. So we can, on a small scale, we can change things. We can make changes in the world. So thank you for the question. Yeah.